Hey everyone, and welcome back to the CLG Faithful podcast. I'm your host Artrin, and it's just me again this week. Nefarious, unfortunately, is off on business. This is episode 21 for the week of June 19th to 25th. So we are going to start it right off with some more League of Legends. We've got two games coming up this week. It is versus Immortals. You might have seen on the CLG subreddit or all over the League of Legends subreddit. It was basically the Civil War. And then we also got the game against Envious, which was also a really good game by CLG. Anyways, so we'll start off with Immortals. So game one was questionable at best. So we basically picked Camille for Darshan, Kha'Zix for Dardoch, Orianna for Huhi, Caitlyn for Stixxay, and Aphromoo was on Tahm Kench of all champions. It's been a long time since I've seen old Afro on Tahm Kench, so it was a little suspect. But this game was it was a brutal stomp. So, Flame was on J4. Smithy was on Gragas. I mean, his signature freaking champion. Pobelter was on Galio. Cody Sun was on Jhin. And Ole was on Bard. Let's just put it this way. Stixxay and Aphromoo had a combined total of 0 kills, 10 deaths, 3 assists. Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. Immortals bottom lane, Cody and Ole, they combined for a total of 6 kills, 2 deaths, 18 assists. Their whole team just really played extremely well. And CLG what a suspect draft. Lee Sin was still up and available for picking for Dardoch. A whole host of top laners were also available for Darshan. Now, CLG banned Renekton, and Immortals banned Fiora and Shen, but I mean, they could have not banned Renekton and just put Renekton into Jarvan. He would have an okay matchup top lane to begin with, and then he would Darshan would basically be that unkillable tank later on in the game, but instead they put him on Camille, which I think with the range for Jarvan is just awful. Dardoch on Kha'Zix, I'm not really sure how he plays Kha'Zix. This is one of the first times I've really watched Dardoch play since he joined CLG. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch the Immortals games. They were over a little too quickly. And I mean, Smithy was on Gragas against him, so you're not going to get to do a whole lot against Smithy when he's on Gragas. The Orianna and Galio mid lane matchup was pretty even. He went 2-3-1. Pobelter went 3-1-11. I mean, these guys are both pretty equal in terms of mid lane strength, and Huhi being on Orianna against the Galio is kind of like, it's pretty hit or miss on both sides. They're both going to be able to kind of poke really well. It's just Pobelter had a better overall team comp than Orianna did. And like I said, bot lane got stomped. Oh, it's brutal. In the post game, a couple days after, Stixxay and Afro both came out and said that they felt like they were playing solo queue in game one, and they were playing really weirdly. So that was, I don't know, maybe there was a little bit of nerves there. Who knows? We'll move on to game two. So the drafting in game two was a lot better by CLG. They got Darshan on freaking Fiora. Dardoch picked up Rek'Sai. Huhi got his Ahri, Stixxay on Ashe, and Aphromoo was on Tahm Kench. Again, they had a really bad time. I should say last game, Stixxay was on Caitlyn. They had a really bad time with the Tahm Kench support last match, Afro going 0-6. And they put him right back on it. Against Ole was on Thresh. Cody Sun was on Kalista. Pobelter was on Talia. Smithy was on a second signature champion of Elise. And Flame got to play Renekton. Now, you think, okay, Darshan, he's got Fiora. Just let him scale into late game, guys. Just get him in there. Darshan did nothing all game. Darshan went 0, 1, and 2. 0, 1, and 2 on Fiora. Dardoch and Huhi both played their minds or played their hearts out. These guys were doing really well. Huhi was 7-1-2. Dardoch was 5-5-5. I mean, all the kills were onto those two. Stixay, Afro, again, shut down. 0-2-4 Stixay, 0-3-4 Afromu. No kills on the bot lane at all these two games. As you can imagine, Immortals takes it. And again, no Lee Sin ban on either team. I don't know why Dardoch wasn't playing Lee Sin. And also no Shen ban as well. I think I would have rather seen Darshan on Shen than being on the Fiora and going 0-1-2. Oh well. So, as you can imagine, CLG lost that one. That one was over in 28 minutes. It was pretty bad. They had a bit of a comeback near the late game, but in the end, they just picked a bad team fight and ended up losing. Unfortunate. So, CLG does lose 0-2 against Immortals. It was pretty bad, but I mean, you know what? You have to give it to Immortals. They deserve those 2 wins. They played really well, and in general, stomped us. That's all you can really say. All right, so we'll move on to the Saturday, where we faced off against Team Envious. A little bit not quite that top tier team like Immortals was. CLG and Immortals were basically vying for sole possession of first place after that night. All right, so we'll start off here with game 1. This one was a bit of a rocky start. Dardoch gave up first blood to top lane for pretty much nothing. Like, they gained absolutely nothing. However, CLG really did claw it back. And with Darshan playing J4, like, it's just beautiful. The new J4 buffs really lend themselves to Darshan's play. And, I mean, Envy didn't ban Aurelion Sol. Huhi got to play Aurelion Sol. Aurelion freaking Sol. Stixay was on Jhin. Afro was on Tahm Kench again. Afro went 0-1-10 as Tahm Kench. And now I will give it to him. He had some really, really good plays as Tahm Kench in these games. He saved Stixay and Darshan many, many times in this game with that bite. Darshan went 4-0-8. Dardoch 1-2-6. Huhi on the Aurelion Sol 5-1-8. Stixay 4-0-4. File not found. Afromu on the Tahm Kench 0-1-10. It was a bit of an up and down game, but in the end, CLG does win it, and it was really good to see them kind of bounce back from that 2-0 loss the day before. And then we'll move on to game 2. So in game 2, Seraph ends up taking Shen, which kind of is a little scary because he's really good on Shen. Darshan kind of tries that counter picky bit there with the Renekton, but it's kind of, who knows really what's going to happen in that top lane. Lyra's playing Elise, and Dardoch ended up playing Gragas. Now here comes the weird thing. So Niski picked Syndra, and then Huhi picked Vlad last as a counter pick to Syndra. I was a little confused as to that. But then Stixay picks up his old signature Caitlyn, and Afro was on Morgana. Apollo ended up playing Ashe, and Hakuo played Braum. Now, again, with the Dardoch, there was no Lee Sin ban. And I'm not sure why they're not putting him back on more Lee Sin. I mean, he plays a really mean Lee Sin. Unfortunately, just him and Huhi had terrible games, including Stixay as well. All 3 of them, Dardoch, Huhi, Stixay, all really top-notch players. They had terrible games. 1-4-0 Dardoch, 1-4-0 Huhi, 0-4-0 Stixay. It was a pretty brutal game. At least it was over relatively quickly in 31 minutes. Envious, they crushed us. Like, it was just a steamroll through. Like, at no point did CLG look like they were coming back. It was kind of unfortunate. So we'll move on to game 3. This is the do or die. There's no way we can go 0-2 on a weekend, man. No way we can. This game was pretty nice. Darshan ends up pulling out the Pocket Kled. And then Dardoch pulls out Rek'Sai again, and who he was very comfortable, he seemed to be, with that Vladimir Syndra pick, because again, he counter-picked Syndra with Vlad. Stixxay picks up Ashe against Apollo's Caitlyn. Afro takes Thresh over Hakuo's Braum. I was really glad to see Afro on Thresh. Just Afro and Thresh, man. He's them hooks. It's beautiful. Anyways, we'll move on to the actual game play. This one was quite a decent game. This was a relatively kind of up and down to start game. It was really a bit of a weird one, but you know what? This ended up being a very, very clean game for CLG. Darshan on Clegg goes 3-0-7. Dardoch on the Rek'Sai goes 5-1-12. Hui on the Vlad, complete reversal of previous game. 7-2-5. Stixxay is like, hey. I can't not get some kills, right? I need to get some freaking fantasy points here. He goes 6-1-8. And Afro on the Thresh, 0-1-15. In the end, like I said, super clean game. A really, really good execution on CLG. And they take it over Envious 2-1. So that was it was a good Saturday night or Saturday evening. Very, very nice. And apparently at the very end, there's one guy chanting CLG, which is awesome because it's nice to see the crowd really getting into CLG at these events now. You could see it all in the previous 3 weeks. Like CLG's been at the top and the crowd was really getting it. CLG is basically being chanted more than TSM at this point, I think, which is fan-freaking-tastic. All right, guys, we're going to move on to the League of Legends Academy team, CLA. They played this weekend as well, and they played 2 games. Yes. So they played against Tempo Storm, and it's best of 3, just like that in the NACS. Basically, a typical CLG roller coaster. CLG had a big lead to start, up 5K at 20 minutes, but then they blew it, and they won a couple of decisive team fights, but overall, a really good game from CLG, and exactly what you'd expect. That roller coaster, heart attack, you gotta love it. Game 2 was really bad for Counter Logic Academy. God really showed up in the jungle, though, getting 5 kills and the most gold on the team at 7.8 thousand. Yeah, 7.8K most gold earned on the team. This game was over at 23 minutes. Pretty brutal. Game 3 was another straight routing by Tempo Storm. A really rough game for Cloud Liquid Academy. I don't know what the heck I'm thinking there. Seeing the CLA is very confusing. Counter Logic Academy pretty much shut down across the board. Unfortunate, but it's good to see them learning and kind of a couple of their players really shining. And then we'll move on to Gold Coin Academy. Unfortunately, there were no stats at the time of writing this. We did lose it 0-2 against these guys. However, they are second place team in the league with the likes of Santorin and Mad Life on their team. So they're a pretty stacked team. And yeah, so that is it for League of Legends. So we're going to move on to some CSGO update. There was no CSGO played this week. However, CLG ended up getting invited to DreamHack Valencia. Yeah, so that's happening July 13th to 15th in Valencia, Spain, and it's got a $100,000 prize pool, which is very typical for these open invite DreamHack things. So anyone can apply to get into it, and then they invite their best teams. So other teams that are going include Ninjas in Pajamas, Heroic, Envious, Misfits, KPI, and then there'll also be an NA and an EU qualifier team added in. So that's pretty sweet. Again, happening in about 2 weeks from now. I think those will be some pretty good games. And let's go CLG. Hashtag CLG win. All right. So we're going to move on to some Overwatch. Yes, we got some Overwatch news this week. Overwatch Contenders Groups Round 2 happened this week. So CLG basically kind of needs to go like 2-1 against all these teams. And they end up playing FaZe Clan this week, Team Liquid, as well as Selfless Gaming. So we'll start with Selfless Gaming, and on map 1, they played Numbani. It was a rocky start for CLG here. They got a complete routing from Selfless, and Selfless took Numbani with 6.5 seconds remaining. Map 2 was Lijiang Tower. Losing round 1 completely, they came back in rounds 2 and 3 to win. Then a loss at 97 to 100 in round 4. And at match point, they took the round 100 to 99. Yeah. Map 3 was Hanamura, and CLG took the map 4-3. So that's super well done by those boys. And then the map 4 was Watchpoint Gibraltar. Selfless went first and got to second checkpoint at 87.91 meters. CLG came back, and with 81 seconds remaining, they pushed it 87.92 meters. Boom. Nicely done. CLG takes match 1 versus Selfless Gaming 3-1. And then up against FaZe Clan. These guys are some old school gamers. At least the team is. If you're ever back in the day of the Doom and Quake, you know, you see all the freaking FaZe tags on there. 9 times out of 10, they were just some guy who wanted to be part of FaZe Clan but sucked. Anyways, map 1 is Hollywood. CLG got to 2 checkpoints, but unfortunately, FaZe Clan made it to 3. Map 2 was Lijiang Tower. Great map by CLG here. After losing round 1 and 2, CLG crushed it for next 3 and take that map. Map number 3 was Temple of Anubis. CLG got 1 checkpoint. However, FaZe ended up getting to the second one and taking the map. Map 4 was Route 66. CLG got to checkpoint 2, but unfortunately, FaZe made it to number 3. Therefore, FaZe Clan takes it 3 maps to 1. Putting CLG at a 1-1 record. Now, the next one is up against Team Liquid. Actually, one of the top teams in this Overwatch Contenders Cup going on right now. Yeah. Team Liquid's a little different in Overwatch than they are in League of Legends, currently bottom tier. And anyways, in order to move into playoffs here, CLG needs to beat Team Liquid in order to get into playoffs. Map 1 was Eichenwald, and this was a really close match. CLG took the cart to 1 checkpoint at 123.24 meters. Unfortunately, with 32 seconds remaining, Team Liquid did the same thing. Lijiang Tower, CLG stomped on this one, taking 3 rounds in a row, and 2 of those rounds being 100-0. Hanamura was map 3. CLG went first, and they only got 1 checkpoint. Team Liquid ended up taking 2 checkpoints and the map. Map 4 is Route 66. CLG did really well here in the final map, taking a checkpoint and surpassing Team Liquid's push with 152 seconds remaining. Unfortunately, CLG takes Team Liquid for a tie, 2 maps to 2. This means that CLG finishes 3rd place in their group and unfortunately drops out of the Contenders Season 0. Overall, a good showing by the CLG crew. I believe instead of having waffles in, they had silk threads. So that may have been something different. I'm not really sure what was going on there. There was a whole bunch of information that all was kind of conflicting there. So who knows? But, you know, 3rd place in their groups, not too bad, especially making it to Group 2 of the Overwatch Contenders groups. Anyways, guys, that's basically the week in CLG news. I really want to thank you guys for tuning in. This is the CLG Faithful Podcast. We are an unofficial podcast hosted by CLG's faithful fans and brought to you by me, Artrin, and our buddy Nefarious, who is on work right now. Thank you very much for listening if you have gotten here, and you guys have a freaking great night. Peace.